Good day and welcome to Constitutional Dialogue series on Asake Online. If you've been following the series, you will know that we've been discussing various issues around the Constitution. We have discussed the Constitutional Amendment Act 2. We've also spoken to various CSOs about the work they are doing to conscientize the public on constitutional literacy, as well as particular interest women and youth taking up their space and being constitutionally literate. Today, we are bringing the Constitution home to a very pertinent issue. We are talking about vaccination and the constitutional right to vaccinate or not vaccinate. And with me to have a chat is Maqhawe Mpofu, and he is a public interest litigation lawyer in Bulawayo, and he's our guest today. Welcome to the series.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you to the viewers.
Thank you. So what is a public interest litigation lawyer for somebody you might not know? And I am one of those people who might not be aware of what that is. Please tell us more about what you do.
Okay. A public interest litigation lawyer, I will try to put this in simple terms as possible. So it is a lawyer who specializes in mostly assisting the public in issues that are affecting the members of the public on their day-to-day livelihoods. Say, for example, there is a community that has not been provided with water. So probably a public interest litigation lawyer can assist them with approaching the courts to compel the government to actually help them realize their right to water, or maybe issue of housing, their right to housing, or environmental rights, among other rights that are enumerated in the Declaration of Rights in the Constitution. Mostly that is what mostly we deal with.
Okay. So amalungu labantu and just pushing their agenda and helping people learn and walk in their rights, basically, and take up their rights.
That is correct. I think you have put it correctly. That is the work of a public interest litigation lawyer in most of the times. Yeah.
Okay. So in our previous programs, we've been discussing the issue of constitutional literacy. And what's your take? Why is it so important to know about the Constitution and what is contained in it?
Actually, not only from my point of view, but Section 7 of the Constitution gives us a provision which in fact provides for awareness of the Constitution. And amongst other provisions, Section 7, it says that the Constitution can be or must be taught as early as at schools, primary schools or even secondary schools, up to the members of the public service, the teachers, talk of your uniformed forces and those other ones. So I'm of the view that those are one of the provisions that the government or even schools have to take seriously in enforcing. If I can give an example of Ghana. In Ghana, you find a primary school child, a high school child, telling you about the three branches of the government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. But now, in Zimbabwe, in our country, ask a primary school kid or a high school kid about the three branches of the government, they won't even know what kind of the animal you were talking about. So I'm of the respectful view that that provision on its own must be taken seriously in as far as taking our constitutional literacy that far. Yeah, it's a provision that I hold dearly in my heart, because I only got to know about the three branches of government when I was first year in university, introduction to law and constitutional law. But before that, I didn't know what those branches were,
You raise an interesting point, because you're saying primary school, high school, even me now, it wasn't until you get exposed to certain environments and you you're working and you have to read about it. And if I wasn't sitting here, I would not know about all these different constitutional issues. And at some point, you find it seems like such an elitist thing, because on the one hand, when you do look for information, you find that you guys are talking about, oh, jurisprudence, thou shalt what, and you use all these big terms. So sometimes it's a bit off-putting to actually even learn. But I love the fact that you said it's in the Constitution. The awareness of the Constitution is in the Constitution, what people should know. And I suppose something we have to take up. In new curriculum, it could have easily encompassed the Constitution, but it didn't. So after all that, we still don't have the awareness in the schools.
Exactly. The Constitution is not only for the lawyers, but it's for all of us. That is why even in the preamble says, we the people. So it doesn't say we the lawyers. You see? So it means it's for each and every Zimbabwean citizen to learn and to know it in and out. That is my view. So at the end of the day, we need a lay person, even acting in their personal capacity or as self-actors, approaching the courts to compel the court, for the courts to compel maybe the government or a certain organization to recognize their constitutionally guaranteed privileges, if I may put it that way, and rights. Yeah.
Okay, let's come back to the topic of the day. Okay. So we are in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic, and there's been a vaccination drive worldwide, basically. And more and more issues are popping up where people are starting to be excluded if they're not vaccinated. Employers are issuing ultimatums. You will not be allowed into the workspace. You're being forced to go on leave. Some people are being threatened with being fired. And I just wanted to find out from you, surely people have a right to choose. And where do I stand? Where do I look up? What is my right in pertaining to this issue when somebody says, no, you will have to do this?
Yeah, I think this is a quite controversial topic, in that in the Constitution, there is a right to freedom of choice, right? Now we've got coronavirus and there's the vaccination drive, but there is no right to be vaccinated as guaranteed in the Constitution. Surely our drafters, those who drafted the Constitution, couldn't have foreseen that there is going to be coronavirus in 2020, 2021, or beyond 2021. So at the end of the day, you will discover that currently there is no legislation which makes it mandatory for each and every one of us to be vaccinated. I think it is then dependent on the government, on the employers, to give us or to give the employees sufficient information on the vaccination drive, on what they stand to benefit and on what they stand to suffer should they refuse to be vaccinated. Some people decide not to be vaccinated maybe on religious grounds, on conspiracy theory grounds, at the same time, in their freedom of choice, by not being vaccinated, you'll discover that that on its own might end up encroaching on someone's health. So it's a delicate balance that we need to strike at the end of the day, and it's an open question that I think currently we'll leave it up open for further debates amongst the citizens, the government, and everyone with an interest in this topic.
So you mentioned that we do have, in terms of personal rights, I have rights, but the government, on the other hand, will have, how can I put it? I want to put it in English. Are there limits to my rights? Is it any point in time where I have these personal rights, but at some point I get to the point where there is a limit of trial. In such instances, your rights might be set aside. To have provision for that in the Constitution, which, okay, the government, I'm saying I've got my personal rights, and then government also can, is there a provision where they say, yes, you do have those rights, but at the same time, there is this provision that sets aside your individual personal rights for the good of the whole.
Yes, actually, there is a provision, the limitation clause in the Constitution, right? It provides for the limitation of some. There are rights that can be limited, but there are some which cannot be limited. But since earlier we discussed the right to the freedom of choice, maybe if I can put it let me put it in the context of choice, right? Say you are arrested. In fact, before being arrested, maybe you're not a free citizen, so you have a choice to move freely whenever you want and what you want to go to. But the moment you are arrested, you are detained. You no longer have a choice to go out for dinner, for coffee, and right? Like currently in the move to curb the spread of coronavirus, there are curfew times. So it means our rights or freedom of movement there is limited because we are trying to arrest the spread of coronavirus. So currently, there hasn't been a case which has been placed before the courts to say to what extent can this freedom of choice not to be vaccinated be taken. So it's one of those things where we really need to look at the pros and cons of that particular right to choose whether to be vaccinated and not to be vaccinated. So I think it's a legal question, which at this point in time, I am not worthy to address because, it's something which, as I said, it's a delicate topic, and I'm not a health expert, by the way. So I cannot then go to an extent of telling people what I've read online, say what are the challenges or the disadvantages of getting vaccinated and not vaccinated. So I would rather stick to my legal, opinion. Mm-hmm.
So essentially, at this point in time, if I found myself being threatened with either termination of employment, it would be like a guinea pig case. If I had the options and the resources to take it to the court, it could go either way, because also government must say for the greater good, because we've been hearing a lot of this what's this, mass immunity, critical hood, things like that. So it could go either way.
So currently there is no law which says you can be retrenched from your employment for refusing to be vaccinated. So,
yeah.
Maybe it's a threat, but it does not have any legal standing currently. Yes. So if the employer wants to use your refusing of being vaccinated to fire you, if I may put it that way, honestly, there's no legal standing in that, and it cannot see the light of the day. So we are getting vaccinated because it's for the greater good. Yeah.
But I don't necessarily have to have a gun to my head.
No. Yes, at this point in time.
So in the region, we since it's a new setup, is there anything in the region regarding instances like this? Have you come across any issues, South Africa? Because I know we're not alone in this whole setup, or even overseas. To say, have there been any judgments that have been passed outside of here that might pave a way for us, and maybe like, okay, these guys did this, and this is the way forward?
No, for now, I'm not aware of any judgments that have been passed. But I remember was it beginning of the year or late last year, the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, when he was addressing the nation, he said that no one is forced to be vaccinated. It is their choice. And no one is going to have a gun on their head to go say, Wena, you need to go and get vaccinated. No, he said it's your choice as a citizen. It's your freedom of choice. So maybe it's because South Africa, it's an open democracy. For lack of better expression, they do not force anyone to get vaccinated. Unlike us, which we say that if you don't get vaccinated, you're not going to get into a Zoom call, you're not going to be employed somewhere, you're not going to get access to courts. I think, and personally, at the end of the day, it's up to an individual whether to get vaccinated or not. As long as there are no laws that say once you are not vaccinated, you are not allowed to access the work premises, you're not allowed to access certain services. So yeah, it's one of those things that honestly it's delicate, and I'm not sure. I don't know how we are going to balance this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, personally, I am of the view that it mustn't be forced on everyone. Yeah.
But we could wake up with a law that says you shall be vaccinated. Then I suppose, how would that then infringe if there was a statutory instrument, since we have plenty of those that are released? Mm-hmm. If we had to have, hypothetically, government passing an instrument saying that everybody has to be vaccinated, because also, look at it this way, the vaccination is going to between 3 years and 17 years now. So it's no longer just 18 plus. There are plans to bring in 3 to 17. And would it be possible? Because, for example, you're vaccinating underage children. So now the right has been taken from their parents and then the children as well. Is something like that foreseeable, a law that says everybody has to be vaccinated? And how would we tackle it, hypothetically?
Maybe hypothetically speaking, we need not only to look at the COVID vaccination, but also to look at your BCG, polio vaccination, those that were administered on us when we were way below 18. Maybe that is the argument that the government might bring. So I foresee a situation where it might be difficult for us or for anyone to challenge that particular law at the end of the day. Because, initially, it was last year in March when COVID started, I thought it was just going to take 21 days and after that,
we'll be fine.
We'll be fine. But now we're going on 2 years and it seems COVID is here to stay. So we end up with no choice but to maybe vaccinate everyone.
Yeah, you bring up a very interesting point. Yeah. BCG, that and the grade 7 one. And
exactly.
Everybody had to have that.
You had to have that. So what if COVID is here to stay and you find ourselves in 20 years, 30 years time, it's still there, and now you no longer need to put on your mask, but you need, at 3 years old, all you need to do is to do your COVID vaccine. We're not sure as to when COVID is going to, yeah.
Because if you look at it this way, also there's a certain religious sect that refuses to have those injections, and they seem to be popping up with. They're the sector that keeps on bringing us back to having those childhood diseases that by now should have been eradicated. Mm. So you make for very interesting points. So wow, interesting.
Yeah,
it's the beginning. Obviously, I'm sure in the next few months or weeks, we will be able to get something inclusive if somebody does take it to the next level. And unfortunately, now we can only just theorize and hypothesize. But then coming back to constitutional literacy and just basically the topic we've had today, in just your rounding words, your summaries, what would you have to say about this?
At the end of the day, I think now we no longer we are not yet we do not yet have the laws which compel all of us to do the COVID vaccination. So for now, I'm of the respectful view that we need to leave it up to people to decide whether or not they can be vaccinated. As I said earlier, freedom of choice, and the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. So let's follow the Constitution for now. We mustn't force people to do something which is beyond the boundaries or the bounds of the law.
Until the law changes.
Until the law until the law changes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Maqhawe, it's been a very interesting conversation with you, and thank you for providing that insight into the different laws, the delicate balance that you all have, individual rights versus the common good. And it's food for thought. It's the beginning of a discussion, and thank you so much for being a part of the series.
Thank you.
And unfortunately, in the interest of time, we have to bring this edition to a close. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. As I always say, Constitutional Dialogue series is the beginning of dialogue. We need to start talking about it, chatting about the Constitution. And I like a very interesting point that Maqhawe said. The Constitution was not made for lawyers. It was made for every single citizen. And the document it's a thin book like this. Even if you gave yourself a couple of months to go through it, the English is basic. You can understand. You can go through it and have a basic appreciation of what our Constitution enshrines, what it contains, and what your rights are as you navigate your day-to-day life. Thank you very much for watching Asake Online. Sizwakele. Please remember to stay masked up. Sanitize your hands, wash your hands regularly, and avoid large gatherings because the third wave of COVID-19 is upon us. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Goodbye for now.